February. What we did last month was we just riled together all of the notable albums that we both heard from that month, put it into a tier list. We're doing it a little bit differently this time, as if you compare the videos, we just are organizing it differently, but we have just found that the way we're doing it now probably aligns with more consistency between the ways we both think about these albums. Adds more structure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we have 12 albums we're talking about today. Considering last video we did on the last day of January, we didn't have time to digest all of the albums that came out that day. So we actually have one from January. And without further ado, we'll just start. My name's Alex. I'm joined by this guy named Ben. And yeah, get friggin' started. First up, we have Showbiz by Mike. It is a. That's your thing, dude. That's your thing. That's your thing. Mike is an experimental hip hop artist who is kind of. You gotta stop.
Yeah, I'll stop.
This guy has been making this like the most repetitive jokes all
I
day.
didn't. Yeah, I don't really know what's. I don't. Whoa, my mic was all the way there.
It's fine.
I don't really know what's going on with me.
I think you're
I
losing
feel
it.
like
You're losing it.
I might be spiraling. This album is okay.
All right. Well, let
It's-
me give it a little
Why
introduction about it.
it's- Bro, has to give an explanation.
No, I'm just like Mike. He is, if you don't know him, he is kind of a rapper who emerged from the same styles, the same like talk rap styles as someone like Earl Sweatshirt or Red Veil. They kind of seem to come from the same, similar influences, and he definitely has a lot of sonic and vocal comparisons to Earl Sweatshirt. And I do think production wise, it's a little more abstract than what Earl Sweatshirt usually does, even if he is very experimental as well. But to the point where I feel like some of the songs on here with a very lengthy track list just like don't really stand out that much. Like they're pretty strange songs, but I feel like they lose a little bit of memorability when they just don't have a hook to bring you back.
Yeah, I mean it's a pretty long track list of songs that are like they're experimental, but they're not doing anything too crazy to really hook you in.
Yeah,
Like I found myself getting pretty bored through it,
I mean,
which
but
definitely impacts my score.
yeah, it wasn't a particularly long album though, so it wasn't. It didn't like. It wasn't like a painful listen. It was just
No, I mean it wasn't a long album, but when there's that many songs, it's like it's hard to like latch onto any of them when they're all like that like brief.
right. Yeah,
They're
I
just
think
they're not too interesting.
first half of the album, I think I had more standouts. Like I think I took more out of the first half. I think by the second half, it just kind of like
It lost its flavor.
it lost its flavor, and the songs that may have worked in the first half felt just more watered down in the second. Like
Yeah.
still some interesting experiments, but just not as much to grab onto. Um, Overall, though, I think it's a solid album.
It's
He did a
fine.
decent job. I would put it in the sixth row.
So definitely. Yeah.
Why are you saying that like you're throwing it in the trash?
No, I meant like I would confidently say that this album is
Yeah.
a solid 6. It's nothing more, nothing
Sure.
less.
Yeah, I think the same thing. All right, moving on. And by the way, these albums are like roughly chronological in how they came out this month. I don't really know the exact dates, but it's roughly there. Next up, we have the new, believe it's the third, the third Squid album, the art rock kind of like art
Wow,
punk
that was the
band.
beginning of this month?
Yeah, I think that was pretty early on. Yeah.
Oh, all right. Continue. Sorry.
But yeah, the art rock group back with their third album follows up their 2023 release, O Monolith, which I was a big fan of. I thought it was a fantastic, almost prog rocky kind of album with some nice electronic influences embedded in there. And I think it decently follows up that sound with another kind of a collage of similar sounds to that previous album, though I think it is done in a little bit of a less interesting way. in the last one. I don't know if you've even heard the last one,
I
but
haven't heard it. I'm just going off purely
yeah,
this album.
sure.
It's very Radiohead esque. Like there, you can tell
Hmm.
there's some inspiration taken, and I love Radiohead, so I'm a little biased here. But like I think it's a really solid album with there's like some especially great tracks. Like I think it's Blood on the Boulders.
Hmm.
I think
Yeah,
I want to say it's like track 3.
yeah,
This super good song, and there's changes throughout most of the songs, so you don't really get bored, and it all sounds like just generally good. This is
yeah.
this is one of the first albums that I've heard this year that I'm like this is like a really good album.
I think it's good. You like it more than me because for me, I feel like in a similar way to the Mike album, I find that a lot of the songs don't fully reach that bar for me to want to really come back to them,
Sure.
where they all seem like really solid efforts in the genre that they do, but nothing outstanding to me.
Okay.
I think there's some really good stuff, but I find that a lot of the songs just don't have that, again, don't really have that hook to them. They, or sometimes maybe even it seems like the song changes too much and doesn't let you soak in whatever is being presented to you. That's not really a general issue for me. Like I'm just kind of saying, thinking that now, but I think maybe when a song has so many changes and none of them are that amazing, it almost doesn't really warrant a ton of changes.
I feel like it's kind of interesting you say that because I feel like you have enough time to like marinate with these songs. They're like all like pretty lengthy songs. I feel like the shortest track is probably like still over 3 minutes.
Yeah, but my other point that I was saying was that it's the length of them that I also feel like when it doesn't really reach that bar, the length just ends up kind of being daunting, and then you're in like it's kind of you're kind of just sitting in it rather than being immersed in it.
I don't know. I feel like this is an album we like actively disagree on here because like the longer tracks have enough changes to keep me focused. Like I have a short attention span,
Yes,
but
you do.
yeah, it's bad. But an album with like these long like the average song on this album is probably like 4.5 to 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'd say probably
And
5.
I listened to it all the way through first time. I don't typically do that.
Do you really not typically do that?
I find it hard with a lot of the albums that come out now,
Whoa.
but um, like it held my attention. I thought it was really good. I was interested in it. Like for me, it's like a 7.5.
Okay, I would give it like a 7.
Okay,
Like I would have like I mean I settled on the 7. I'm kind of I was between like a high 6 to a low 7, but I'd settle on the 7 now
because like in some
because it has that
facets,
quality. It has the quality to it.
okay, and in some facets, I do agree with you. Like I feel like it definitely has the potential to be stronger,
Hmm.
and
Which I think their
yeah,
last
it's
album
probably
was, in my
okay.
opinion.
I'll probably check it out
Yeah,
at some point. It's not like quite there, but the fact that it's on the way and it's still really solid, like I feel like it just deserves like a little bump.
that is a 7 for Cowards by Squid. A good album. It is a good album. Definitely one of the best rock albums to come out this year, for sure.
It's definitely one of the best albums to come out this year.
It's up there.
Yeah,
There are some I
I
like
would
more
say it. I
though.
would say it's currently for me. It's top 10 of this
Top
year.
10? Yeah. I mean, we've only had like 25.
Well, yeah, it's over 10.
Yeah, I guess that's a good amount.
Yeah,
Yeah. In my head, it was like maybe like 20, which would be like half. But I guess over
yeah.
20 would makes it like a valid stat.
It's still over 10. It's in my top 10.
Yeah, I know that. Okay.
If
All
it
right.
was if we only listened to 11 albums this year, that'd be a really dumb thing to say. But
Well, even if we listened to 20, I feel like that would be like just like half. It wouldn't be that remarkable. But the fact that it's like
yeah, no, no,
25,
no.
the fact that
I
it's
know
like
what you mean. I know
the
what you
fact
mean.
that it's like 25 or 26 actually make that yeah, that's a more remarkable stat.
Yes.
Yes. All right, next up we have Life is Beautiful by uh 2 Chains, Larry June, and The Alchemist. Production wizard, The Alchemist. He killed it last year with Meet the Grams. So he is a just an amazing figure of some of like spacey jazz rap. So I was actually really excited to hear what these collabs were gonna bring, because like Two Chainz is usually known for his really like expressive, extravagant style, and Larry June for his more laid back style, kind of more akin to what like Mike would do.
Yeah.
Maybe in a style more similar to like West Side Gun, like in his like delivery and stuff, even if their voices are very different.
We'll be talking about him later.
Yeah. But so it was interesting to see. It was I was intrigued to hear what the collaborations would sound like. Underwhelming.
Disappointing.
It was underwhelming.
Yeah. It's uh, it's fine. Like I
It's
wouldn't
the definition of
a
fine.
it's a very average
It's so
album.
average.
There's nothing too crazy going on despite the two artists that are working on it. You'd expect something like
3 artists.
three. What? I wasn't counting production,
But
but
I mean, he's one of the best parts of the album. Like,
he's the best part of the album in my
even if
opinion.
it's still like, here's my thing about the album is that it's so this to the core. Average hooks,
Yes.
average rapping,
Yes.
average lyrics.
Yes.
Honestly, pretty average beats, even if the beats are still some of the best parts of it.
Yeah.
Average song topics, like average sonic progression of the album. It's just like all average. It's
Yeah.
all just like perfectly right in the middle of all the music in the world.
It's yeah, it's nothing bad, but like why would I ever go back to it?
Yeah, I think a lot of the songs just lack like in a way that I kind of described to the other albums we've talked about so far, but even more so, they just really lack
Yeah,
a backbone. They really lack just like
definitely.
just something holding it all together to work. It just feels like collected. There's like a collection of half thoughts.
I don't remember a single track title from this album, but I want to say there was like one song that I was like, all right, this is like
There
kind
was
of good.
a few in the back half that I liked more than the first
Yeah,
half.
but
Definitely.
like the fact that I can't remember like a single thing about this album
Definition of
is
came and went.
yeah,
Yeah, I
is boring.
think that's pretty much all there is to say about this album. So I would put in the five. Well,
Yeah, definitely. It's like a 5.5.
yeah, I'd probably give it like a 5.5 too.
Yeah.
All right, next up we have uh, Marabou State with Hallucinating Love.
Mhm.
Another fine album, though I do think it's
It's definitely
it's
better
definitely
than
better than the one we just talked about. It's
yeah.
Marabou State, a electronic duo who have been operating for like I think like 10 years by this point. We were talking about it recently. Like they have over 4 million monthly listeners on
Yeah,
Spotify
we're gonna bring this up.
with not that many, like not without a song that has that many streams. And
Well, yeah.
I don't know who they are. I don't know where they're getting these streams. Where do they come from? Like, I'm happy for their success. Good for them.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
like, who are these guys?
well, yeah,
Where are they coming from?
the fact that we got recommended this album and then we both listened to it and we're like, all right, it's pretty good. We check their monthly listener count; it's in the millions, and we're like, how have we never heard of these people before at all?
Yeah, they've done some
It's
like
just really
remixes
weird.
with big names too. I don't know how it's
Maybe that's where their listener count comes
like
from.
maybe yeah, it's got to be. It's got to be
It has to be.
because so we
It
listened to this
has to
album.
be.
This is our first Marabou State album. I think it was their fourth studio record, and I think well, there were definitely the production was the highlight.
Oh
Like the
yeah,
variation in the production was really cool. Like some of it has some like gospel elements, some of it was some like dance funk kind of stuff, some of it was just straight up electronic with like some string fusions in some tracks. Like a lot of the production sounded really cool, specifically on the first song, which has the biggest discrepancy between that and the vocals. Because I
yeah,
think for me, a lot of the biggest problem with the album is that the vocals are either too laden in effects, so I just didn't really
definitely.
have an interest in what they were talking about, and I also I just don't think they sounded that good. They sounded like they were just kind of like on top of the production. It didn't sound like melded with it. It just sounded
That's valid.
it just sounded like it was a separate force, and it just wasn't. It didn't sound like it meshed with the music in a great way.
When you brought that up initially when we first listened to it, I was like, I don't really see what you're talking about. But then I listened to a couple of tracks again and I was like, sure, yeah, I can hear what you're talking about. I
Like
don't necessarily think
yeah,
it's too big of an issue. Like it probably wouldn't like take points off for me in that sense. I just thought it was a chill album that I just wouldn't really go
that's
back
the best
to.
way to say it. It's a chill album, and a lot of the songs though, Like there was a stretch of songs in the middle that all had featured vocalists, and those are my favorite songs in the album.
Yeah,
Like
those were good.
the stretch in the middle is really solid. All I need is a really cool gospel esque song. I think that was a really good song.
How many songs are called All I Need,
There's a lot of
dude?
them.
There's so many.
There's a lot out there,
Um,
but they're often like really good.
Radiohead. It's
Yeah,
got
but they're often
really
really
good songs.
good songs.
Yeah,
Like this, I guess there's just
if
something.
they're all you need.
It's a solid album.
I wouldn't put it any higher than a
I
6,
wouldn't either.
but
I
there's
like the
nothing
Mike
like
album more than it.
really
Yeah,
okay.
definitely.
I probably don't like the Mike album as
I think it
much,
was more
but
creative.
okay, yeah, yeah, that's fair. I just like the sound of this one more.
Sure. All right, but
But
yeah, same tier.
yeah,
It's a solid release, solid record. Up next, we have one of my favorite albums from the month. It is Sharon Von Etten with her
yes.
band The Attachment Theory, and the album is thus called Sharon Von Etten and the Attachment Theory.
Ooh.
So Sharon Von Etten has been in the indie rock music scene for I don't I think a little over a decade by this point, and she has varied her style from time to time. With this time around incorporating like a very 80s new wave kind of aesthetic. And the band, her band, The Attachment Theory, has never fully joined her on an album yet. They've joined her on stage, they've joined her in the studio from time to time, but this is her first album credited to both of them, which is pretty cool. It automatically just brings like a collaborative energy to the whole thing. And I really dig the sound of it. I think it's a really
Yeah,
each song adds something kind of new to the thematic or the sonic motifs of just like the 80s, just diving straight into that 80s synth pop sound, synth rock sound. It's done really well. It's all really dreamy sounding.
yeah,
Um,
definitely.
she does a great job on this, and the songwriting is really great too.
Yeah, it's a very. I would describe this album as like ethereal
Yeah,
and
I think
some serious.
the first track feels very dreamlike and
Yeah,
ethereal.
yeah, it's
But then
very
there's some
immersive.
rockers too, like Idiot Box,
Hmm.
Afterlife is fantastic. My mom actually put that on her playlist. I played it for
Oh,
her.
nice.
Um, but then I think maybe the second half before the last track, which we'll talk about in a second.
Yeah,
But in the second half, I think is maybe falters a tiny bit over the first half, but the last two tracks were incredible. Incredible
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Both of the last two, but the last one, wow, it's one of my favorite songs this year. Easily.
Easily, dude.
It's
Yeah,
so
it's
good.
beautiful.
It ties everything together perfectly. It's an incredible bow on top of it all.
Yeah, it, some serious Kate Bush
Yeah,
vibes.
absolutely.
Um, this album's great.
Yeah, it's great.
It's super solid. It's immersive. It's interesting. It's pretty.
Yeah, I think I would still maybe put it in the high end of the 7.
Yeah, definitely 7.
Um we're not all of these tier lists are kind of based on, like, as you can see here, these are score based, so they're gonna kind of be all relative with each other. So
Yeah.
we're not just gonna, just because it's the best album of the month, we're not gonna put it in the top tier, or we're not even gonna put it in the second to top tier, because in my opinion we haven't had that amazing album come out
No.
this year yet, but it often
Yeah.
doesn't. But I think we've had a lot of memorable ones. That's the thing. I think we've
Sure.
had a lot of memorable ones this year, but none that have really um, reached that top yet, which again often happens in the second half of the year. Moving on, I think that's a really good album. That's a really great album.
It is.
Up next, we have West Side Gun, the jazz rap hip hop artist with one of the best voices in the game. Back with another one of this numbered series. Back in what was it, 2022, his album 10 was really great. I loved it. He had like a 10-minute song closing it out with like 10 different verses from people. It was awesome stuff.
It's a lot of
A
10s.
lot of tens. I don't know if it was 10 verses, but it was a lot. It could have
Okay.
been.
Well, who
I guess that would
knows?
make sense.
Yeah.
But that was a great. I mean, that was a great song, and that addition to the series in his catalog was fantastic. So I was excited for this one. Also, considering his last two albums have been underwhelming, um, I thought this album was solid.
Yeah, it was okay.
It was solid.
I thought it was. I haven't listened to any of his other stuff, but the
Keep up.
topics were interesting. I generally liked the sound
His
of
rapping
every
style is
song.
great. Yeah,
Yeah, it's just nothing. crazy.
Well,
You
my
know?
my main problems with it was that well, one, a very obvious one. Why did every song have to have like a long skit on it at the
Yeah,
end? It's like
yeah. I mean,
the every song was tagged with like 45 seconds of a skit, and it just dragged.
the
It dragged.
closer did it really well though.
Yeah,
Um,
the closer was easily the best song on the album. Those
yeah,
choir vocals were absolutely insane,
yeah.
absolutely incredible stuff.
But yeah, that's not enough though to make the album like
No,
better than what it is,
no,
which is
in the
pretty
features,
okay.
the features were just way too prominent too. Like
Yeah,
I know I guess it was very obvious he was trying to have this like collaborative thing going on, just like this very collaborative energy with like some close friends because a lot of the features were the same people.
yeah.
Um, and I won't say that their chemistry was bad per se. I think it just took away from his own artistry, and mixed with the fact that I think the production was nothing special either. It just ended up being an all right album. Nothing super special, and
Yeah.
I think West Side Gun can do better. I'd probably put it in the six row.
Yeah, it's on the higher end though.
Sure, I'll give it the high
Like
of the six.
it's
I think Mike's is still better though. I think Mike's still is a better album.
you like that album a lot more than I do.
I just think it's
And that album
I think it's a
is
style that you haven't dove into much yet.
like maybe, but
Because
it was
while it's not my favorite style in hip hop, it's a very respectable style to me. But sometimes an
okay.
artist has to do a lot to break out of like those conventions of it, where like a lot of their voices sound very similar. Like they all just kind of rip Earl Sweatshirt, like the kind of like deep voice talk rap style.
They they rip his sweatshirt. It's kind of mean.
Yeah, they tear it apart. It's absolutely.
Jeez.
I know. It's like they do to all of them. Then he's cold in the winter.
Wow. Earl no sweatshirt.
Up next, we have another really good album, in my opinion. It is End of the Middle by Richard Dawson, the experimental prog
Oh.
folk singer songwriter. He's coming right off a trilogy of album, a very ambitious trilogy of albums where each represented the past, present, and future. And if you want to just a couple points to show how ambitious this trilogy was, the first one, the album titled Peasant, he did extensive research into the medieval past, and the last album titled The Ruby Chord has the first song is 45 minutes long. So an ambitious exploration of time and history, and it's clear that he is not done with the themes of time and the meditations on it because this album very much deals with time and about the cyclical nature of generations and families. Because this album actually centers on a family and the in the inner workings of generations and the cyclical mistakes they make, and how each generation, unless they break out of like the confines of their issues, they're just going to keep passing down these issues to each generation. And I think it's really well done.
I do too. I mean, this is a really creative album. Um, I've brought it up every time we talk about this album, but the track "Bullies"
Yeah,
has there's a clarinet solo that plays I don't know maybe like a minute or two in, and it sounds exactly like an expo marker writing on a whiteboard.
yeah,
And
very creative.
that's
Little details.
intentional or not. That's so cool to me.
Yeah, just like
Um,
little details, and
yeah,
it's done really well. And like a lot of the songs just convey the larger themes of the albums really well. Like Bullies is great because it's about a kid who is bullied, then grows up to be the father of a kid who bullies.
yeah,
And he kind of simultaneously realizes that his bullies were also just maybe good kids too, who made bad choices. So he kind of figured out that he should try and get his son on a different path while also having sympathy for his bullies at the same time.
yeah,
It's a really interesting song topic, and he his and Richard's kind of strange vocal delivery and really fantastic lyric writing just makes it some of those kinds of songs very special.
yeah. It works super well as like a narrative
Yeah,
because of how well written it is. And I will say the vocals definitely aren't for everyone. They're
yeah,
definitely not for me.
it's a hurdle to get
It's
over for sure.
yeah. But I wouldn't say that holds it back too much in terms of like
Hmm.
what I would give it, especially because there's a lot of character that shines
Absolutely.
through those vocals as well. So I think it's a really good album.
Yeah, I think yeah, definitely. And a lot of the song structures are pretty long, but again, his lyrics are super immersive.
Yeah,
The touches of jazz instrumentation here and there was just like really welcome. It adds a lot of color to the sound, and again, like a lot of the longer song structures just really pull you in, and you feel really immersed in the story. Yeah, I think it's a fantastic album. I would probably put it in the
the sevens.
high end of the sevens too.
Yeah, like where Sharon Von Etten is.
Yeah, probably put him around in the same spot.
Yeah,
All right, up next we have, say it with me, our first buns
buns.
of the tier list. We have Drake and Party Next Door with their new album, Some Sexy Songs for You. Yeah, this album's buns. It's kind of the weirdest decision to follow up his absolutely decimating beef of last year. I'm surprised he didn't put out an album showcasing his rapping skills after like a rap beef.
You say it's the weirdest thing he could have done, but I feel like it's like so on brand for him to
It is on
release
brand, but like
this
you,
corny,
yeah.
sorry if this is offensive, dumb album.
I thought you were gonna say something way worse than dumb. I don't
I
know.
mean, it's garbage.
Yeah, it sucks.
I mean, everyone's talking about like, oh, Nokia is fun. Like, sure,
It's like the
it's
only kind of
fine
fun one.
sounding. Everything else is just so mind-numbingly boring.
Yeah, it's
If like I have to like, I feel like I have to dumb myself down to enjoy it in any facet, and I can't even do that.
this is
So
like Drake. Like Drake would do styles like this back in like 2011, but he would do it so much better and with an actual like human behind it. Now
yeah,
this just sounds like the most robotic, nothing music of all time. And like when this got like a bunch of just like terrible reviews right out of the gate. Um, Party Next Door put on his Instagram story, basically saying all these people analyzing this, like, dude, these are songs to fuck to. And
this is so
I'm like, dude,
dumb.
you can't just put out a shit album and hide behind the fact that it's not music to analyze. It's
Yeah,
music to fuck to. Like that's not a good reason for making shit music. It's like he knows it's bad.
yeah,
It's
it,
just no effort was put into this. It's every song just drones on with little changes. I feel like Drake and Party Next Door's vocals don't even like they have the exact same delivery. They
yeah,
don't differentiate themselves, even though you can tell who's who. They don't differentiate themselves enough to make it a worthwhile thing. Like, and Drake takes up like 65% of the album. I think I saw that stat.
yeah.
So like at that point, I'd rather just hit Party Next Door, not be there, and let it be a shorter Drake album and make it less offensive to my brain.
I mean, yeah. Not that that would really save it
It
from
wouldn't
being
save it. It would just make it less
bad.
long, dude. Why was this fucking an hour and 15 minutes?
I know.
Crazy.
It was way
Crazy.
too long. It was boring. It was dumb.
Come on, the title
Yeah.
coming after like all the stuff about Drake, and it's just so eerie, dude. He has some lyrics about like, have you heard this? That they're like,
What?
I don't know if you even caught them. There's lyrics on the album where he like literally says like he's like stuck in his teenage phase where it doesn't work now after the allegations, and it also doesn't work because he's like a 40-year-old man. He
Yeah.
says shit like you're still living in your mama's house, or like maybe try and sneak out at night, shit
Oh,
like that. And it's like
that's so weird.
right in the buns. All right,
Like, wow.
we have something next, something you like more than I do.
Oh,
It's Tate McRae, So Close to
okay. I
What.
like it, but like not that much. I know it's not good.
You should start talking about it. This is well,
Sure.
Tate McRae is just. I'll say one thing. Tate McRae is the definition of pop
Okay.
with no remote flavor to it whatsoever.
Oh.
You go now.
I don't necessarily even know about the flavor. I feel like some of the production on this album is pretty fun. With like sports car. I mean, yeah, there's not too much substance on this album. You can't get too much out of it other than having a good time and listening to some fun music.
I did not have a good time with this dude. This gave me a headache.
That's fine if it gave you a headache. I'm sorry that it did,
It gave
but
me a headache, and it actually, I tried listening to other music later on,
mhm.
and I tried drinking water. Nothing was helping the Tate McRae headache, dude.
I don't think Tate McRae is the sole responsibility for that
It definitely
headache,
wasn't, but it's what brought it
but it
on.
definitely helped. Yeah. Um, this album is, at least it's better than her last one, so she's heading in the right direction. At least, you can turn your brain off for a little bit and have some fun dance pop.
But I don't think I think her vocals are processed to all hell. She
That's just her style,
and
though. I feel
it
like
doesn't sound good. Everything is garbled. Like it doesn't sound like a real person singing. I just feel like this is the direction pop shouldn't be going, but it's lowest common denominator pop music.
I I agree in lowercase letters. Like I don't.
Okay.
Let's look at the last bad album we reviewed here with
Last
Drake.
bad album. Yeah.
That's like turn your brain off and you still can't have fun because it's just annoying to listen to. This, in my opinion, I feel like there's some catchy flows. It's, production wise, like I said, I think it's pretty solid, and it's most of it is just fun music that you don't necessarily need to be analytical to because it just.
That's not my problem with it.
What's your problem?
You don't have to be analytical to it. That's not my issue. My issue is that it's mind numbing, and I don't think it's really catchy. I think it's just annoying and and it's either annoying or nothing.
All
And
right.
I personally I think this album's really bad. I think the songs are not memorable. I think the
Okay.
production is fine, but with not a good vocalist on it and not good songwriting on it, then it just becomes nothing songs. It's slightly more fun or slightly less not fun than Drake's album, but I think it's not. It was. I didn't have a good time. I didn't have fun listening to it. Where would you? What column would you put it in? And then I'll average it with mine.
I'd give it a low five.
All right, we're doing four then. Because I
Sure.
would put it in buttons.
Okay.
So we'll do four.
Okay.
All right. Up next, we have a better album. It's New Dawn by Marshall Allen. I love when a new notable jazz album comes out because it's pretty rare to have new jazz stuff come out. Like in just the modern day, it's a pretty dead genre, which is sad, but it's just like that's an attention span thing with people, like and like a catchiness thing. It's like the more short pop songs come into the playing field, the less you're gonna have of 8 minute jazz songs. It's just like
Yeah.
it's not gonna happen. Um, but so I like taking the chance to really talk about a jazz album because I love jazz and it's nice when a good one comes out. And Marshall Allen, who was a member of Sun Ra's orchestra way back in the 70s, and then is actually the leader of it. He's been the leader of it since Sun Ra's death back in the 90s. He's 100 years old, and this is his debut solo album, and I think it's really good. I think he does a great job. I think the arrangements, the compositions are really solid. The title track "New Dawn" was a single from last month, and I love it. I think it's an incredible song. So I'm a fan of this one.
Yeah, you say really good. I feel like, in my opinion, it's just good.
Sure.
It's solid jazz music. New Dawn is a really good song.
Yeah.
Um, but everything else is pretty standard. Um,
Yeah.
and like you said when it first came out, is that for someone who is 100 years old, you would probably expect something a little bit more heavy or
A little more.
like showing that age
A,
in a
li-
way.
yeah, a little more expansive in it
Yeah.
in the sounds. Like I think the thing about it is that just like a lot of jazz, a lot of the best jazz or the jazz that is most known by critics as like the jazz classics, most of them are like around a 7 out of 10. unless they do something really unique to make it better and do something to really like cross that bridge, go the extra mile. And this is one of those albums that doesn't necessarily do that. It's I think if it came out way back then, it could be looked at as a great classic jazz album, but it didn't. It doesn't really add much to the genre.
Yeah.
But I think in what it does in a quality way. Like there's some cool big band type stuff like Are You Ready? There's like New Dawn with vocal jazz. Then you have some of the more like hard bop kind of sounds like on Sonny's Dream, some spacier kind of elements on the last track. I think there's some solid variation, but coming from someone who was a member of the avant-garde jazz movement back in the 70s, you'd expect a little more experimentation with an album that just is supposed to be a like a comprisal of like of a life, a full life
Yeah.
lived, and one that is so life affirming.
Yeah. I mean,
And
so
it definitely
it's
feels the life affirming though, which is an important part of the album.
yeah. There's definitely that feeling there, but like in regards to what we just talked about, it is like a little underwhelming in that way.
Yeah, I think a little bit. Yeah,
So yeah, I mean, it's still good though.
yeah.
I'd put it in like the lower end of the sevens.
I put it personally. I'd put it above Cowards, but we can put it under Cowards for you, for you, just for you. All right, a couple albums left. We have the folk country
Oh yeah, I forgot about
indie
this album.
man, Jesse Wells. He is a guitarist, very unique persona. He's operated in the music scene for over a decade and has done a few different genres, but he's really under his name Jesse Wells. He has released 3 albums within the last year, and those are the only 3 he's done under his own name. And he's really sat in that Bob Dylan esque protest folk sound and he released 2 albums last year. The second of which I really liked. I thought was great, and he really um, had that Dylan sound with the harmonica and the folksy guitar. He is slowly. I feel like he slowly shedded that mystical persona.
Aura.
Yeah, the mystical aura where he feels so mysterious. He feels like he's on. He's not on the right side of the political spectrum. He's not on the left side, but he's just kind of sits in the middle, yelling at all of it. Like everything sucks.
Yeah.
Everyone's fucked up, and I think it's an interesting perspective to write music from, especially someone who literally released TikToks of him playing all of his songs in the woods. It feels all like these elements added up to this bizarre persona who is this kind of outsider. And I think over the course of these 3 albums, now we have this album, Middle. We just kind of got a guy now. He's not really a mystical presence anymore. I think he's, for better or for worse, he's just a folk guy. He's just a country guy, which like definitely makes him a little bit of an less interesting figure, but it doesn't really detract from the music itself.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of his other works, but this album is like it generally sounds good, and I do enjoy what he does with his more country side.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the sound, I feel like the writing is a little bit more relatable.
Sure.
Um, I enjoy this album, but it's he hasn't reached his full potential.
No, definitely not.
So
But it's interesting. I think his full potential lies in some of his more powerful folk ballads than it does.
I don't know.
I
Like
think maybe a mix of the two would be good.
yeah,
Because this album does a little bit of that. Like the last track, Middle, was
yeah,
very much more like what he's known for. But then the opening track, Horses, is just an absolute country banger. It's awesome. I love that song.
yeah. It would be great if this whole album was filled with songs that were with the same quality as the opening and closer.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of them that come close. I think
There's a few.
I think
I don't say a lot.
yeah, I think it falters a bit in the second half. Just
Yeah,
he tries out some things that don't really fully work. He makes some songs that just feel like slightly worse versions of ones that appeared elsewhere in the album. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag, but ultimately I think it's a quality album. I think it's a solid effort, and like you said, he hasn't reached his full potential. I think
yeah.
some of his best writing is on here, but also some of his less interesting writing is here too.
Yeah, definitely.
So
I'd put
ultimately,
it
I'd give this at the highest end of the six, probably.
okay. I think I like the sound a little bit more than you do, so I'd
Yeah,
probably put it in the low sevens, but
you decide. Where do you
I,
want to put it?
you can put it high six.
Okay.
You gave me cowards.
All right. Sounds
You
good.
can do that.
I do really like Jesse Wells though, so I wish the best for him, and it's cool that more people are liking him. I just honestly, I don't want him to water down his sound because of that, which I
I don't think you
worry
will.
maybe this album is, but I'm not sure. I think we have to
I
just
don't
see where
know.
time takes us.
I feel like his vocal presence is really strong on a track like Horses, but
Hmm.
like I can see what you're saying with his creativity sort of slipping.
Yeah, but I don't know. We'll see. If it doesn't affect his sound, I'm probably not going to care. But I just don't want him to lose sight of the artist he is because he's a very interesting artist for sure.
Yeah.
All right, last one we have Cheek Face. The geek rock band is back with their fifth studio album, following their last one titled "It's Sorted" from early last year, which came out like about a year ago, and I think it's about around the same quality. This one's called Middle Spoon, so very similar title to Jesse Wells' album, and
This one
I think it's a really fun album.
this one's just got a spoon in it.
This one's got a spoon in it instead of just middle, not the first spoon, not the third spoon.
This album is actually I
The
liked it a
middle
lot
spoon.
more. I liked it a lot more than I was expecting to. When I first you played a song by them
Yeah.
last
The Fringe.
it was our last semester here, I think.
Fring. The Fringe.
And I was like, wow, this is some serious young Sheldon music. Like
Yeah.
just
But you like
completely
Young Sheldon.
okay, well like is a strong word. I think it's funny. It's
So
goofy.
you like it, dude. Come
I
on.
like the young Sheldon memes more than like young
You
Sheldon
like watching
itself.
it with brain rot on the bottom.
Yeah, it's fun. It's so fun when I'm scrolling on TikTok and I get half young Sheldon, half Subway
Subway
Surfers
Surfers.
with like some
Do you ever
floating
get it
gorillas
when
in the corner.
do you ever do you ever get it when it's like something that's like some like gooey shit some guys
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah. Like people
squeezing?
like playing with slime.
Yeah, dude.
It's just constant stimulus. Like
It's
there's
actually and then you say you can't even finish an album in
this
one sitting.
this is why.
That's
It's because I'm consuming that sort of content on a day-to-day basis. I'm actually like ruining my brain, dude. Anyway, so when I originally heard that song last semester, I was like, this is goofy as hell. Like I don't think I'd be able to listen to this
yeah.
as a full album. But this album it's charming
It has a
and
lot of character to it.
yeah,
A
it's
lot of
charming in a
character.
way that uh, I don't find annoying, and I thought I would have initially.
I think the talk singing style of the vocals makes it all really tongue in cheek, and the lyrics are funny.
Yeah,
They poke fun at a lot of the institutions in the country, and they do it in really unique ways. It's not an incredible album. It has some of their career highlights, but also just some stuff that's kind of whatever. Just like similar to Jesse Wells, just some versions of song. There are some versions of songs that are just slightly less interesting than other songs on the album. Like I'd say the last track is uniquely underwhelming, which is like being a
yeah,
final song. Like it's weird that that song is the last one,
yeah,
and it's just like not that interesting to me. But then the intro track is fantastic. It's super anthemic. It's like it's
yeah.
great. And we talked
Military
about a lot of
Gum.
the what were you gonna say?
I was going to talk about Military Gum. I think that's a
Oh
great
yeah,
song. Well,
the McKinley Dixon feature is just so
yeah,
cool,
yeah,
so unexpected. I think we were talking about this before, but one big aspect of the album is a lot of the mystique around where
the subject matter
their
and like
perspectives in the subject
yeah,
matter, how much of it is satire versus how much of it is authentic. A certain songs like "Growth Sucks" or "I Know What's Gonna Happen."
yes,
I know what's going to happen, and "Growth Sucks" both share a quality of being very, very surface level, basically just saying I don't want to change. I want to stay the way I am because it's easier that way. Because I know who I am now, so why would I change that if I don't know what I'm going to be next? Same with the other song with "I Know What's Going to Happen." I like reruns because I know what's going to happen. I don't have to go into the unknown. I can just stay with the comfortable and the familiar. And at first, when I heard this, I was like, that's kind of a weird perspective. Like, I don't really agree with that. But I guess maybe that's the point. Maybe like the tongue in cheek way of writing probably points to the fact that they are poking fun at people who feel that way. Because, like you said last time we talked about this, you like like human beings are meant to grow. So it's like they obviously know that they're musicians, they're artists. They obviously know that people are going to feel that's what human nature is. So I guess they're just poking fun at people who are against that, who don't feel open to that.
Yeah, but then there's also the argument that like growth is to be human. Like to be human is to grow.
Yeah,
But then also to be human is to have these flawed ideas that like,
yeah, true,
oh, I shouldn't be growing. I should stay this young and healthy forever. So I feel like it's just like a meta commentary about being human,
sure.
and it's satirical in that sense. And I think it's really smart to
It
like
is. It
write an
is really
album like
smart.
that.
And coming from someone who, on the surface, seems as goofy
Yeah.
as he is, the vocalist and the songwriter, it just it comes off in a really entertaining way.
Yeah, I also think it's the perfect way to do it. I feel like if there was like a
Too
super
serious. If it was
super
too
serious or
serious,
somber album that talked about it like that, I feel like wow, that's super pretentious.
super pretentious.
Yeah,
But it works with
it works super well like this.
considering he has lines poking fun at people who think they're too smart.
Yeah, exactly. The Tame Impala being one person
Yeah, it's
line is
hilarious. And
so
literally, the
funny.
song's called Art House. It's just like
Yeah,
it's so funny. They do a great job on this album. I think it's a top three album from this month.
definitely.
I put it personally. I'd probably put it right under around the same quality as Richard Dawson's.
Yeah, I agree. Right
So
there.
right in the middle of the seven row.
Yeah, perfect.
All right, awesome. So this month, I think on average a little less interesting than last month. I think we had a little bit
Yeah.
more quality diversity, like quality among the versatile, like the different kinds of albums coming out.
Yeah.
Um, and I think overall this month is solid. We had a couple stinkers, I think.
Yeah.
Um, a little bit that's just kind of in the middle, but ultimately we had a few really good releases, and we've had a lot of notable releases. Just nothing that has really made its impact on me yet, but it will happen. And there's been a lot of good consistency throughout the year so far.
Yeah. I mean, the last month definitely had some more popular releases. And
Yeah.
well, that's it for our tier list for the month of February. Hope you all enjoyed watching. Subscribe, like the video, maybe.
Like, we barely know what we're doing.
Yeah.
And have a great March if we don't see you until our next tier list video.
Yeah.
Peace out.